And for that, we're going to bring in Landon Swan. He's a co-founder of LikeFolio.com. We're taking a look at Nike today. Hey, happy Monday, Landon. Good to see you.
Hey, guys. How are we doing?
We're doing well. So we got Nike. Now, I know you're probably a New Balance guy, white New Balance, but we're talking Nike today, and this stock, really good news on this name today. A couple price target hikes, an upgrade today ahead of earnings. What are you guys seeing in data out of LikeFolio?
Yeah, Nike's at all-time highs right now, or just off of all-time highs today. Stock's doing extremely well. And, you know, when we look at the purchase intent data for Nike, people talking about buying the shoes, we do see that the stock, it seems to be getting a little bit ahead of purchase intent. I wouldn't call this super bearish, but I would say that purchase intent does not exactly justify the stock price where it's at now. But what's really interesting, and I love looking at this, when we look at happiness, there's been a couple of really cool things that's happened over the last little bit with Nike. So when Zion Williamson was injured because of his Nike shoe failure, there was a ton of negative mentions, and you can see that on our chart there. You can see that the red spike is negative mentions, and what's really interesting is that very shortly after, so that was on, I think, February 20th, and very shortly after, on the 24th, Nike released an ad campaign, the Dream Crazier campaign, which is highlighted women doing crazy things in sports and succeeding in sports, and that was received tremendously well. They released it on the Oscars. There's a little bit of a conspiracy theory in the marketing world that they planned the release for that on International Women's Day on March 8th, but they moved it up 12 days to counteract the negative news around Zion Williamson's injury. I don't know if there's any truth to that, but I've heard that rumor before. And what you can see is that purple line was happiness. It dipped after that injury and after the shoe failure, and then it immediately recovered on that ad campaign, which was received extremely well. So I think maybe Nike had that ad in the books and they released it a little bit early to counteract that. If so, it was an absolutely pro-marketing move. And happiness is now back on the uptrend where it was before. Duke's winning games, and as long as we don't have another shoe failure, I think that Nike's kind of in the clear on that one.
Landon, I am a fan of paying attention to these shoe companies, but I think Nike is doing well for a different reason than most people. A lot of people talk about online, a lot of people talk about their stores. I think it's the quality of the shoes that they put out now is the differentiating factor. I have Nikes, and I've never had Nikes. Jenny was teasing me because I was an old New Balance guy. That's where Tom got his dad joke. It was from, they were making fun of me. But even I have to admit, the quality of their shoe and what they've done with some of the new Epic React shoes is really unbelievable, is how they've changed these shoes around. I think it's the quality of the shoe that's doing this.
Yeah, I think quality's definitely gone up. You know, back maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, we saw a big shift where Adidas was starting to take a lot of market share, and the comments on Twitter were right on your point, where the quality of Adidas were higher, and I think that Nike reacted very well to that. They've increased their quality, and they've kind of fended off Adidas for the short term at least. And so, you know, they're trading at all-time highs. They're doing extremely well. They're doing all the right things. So they are making high-quality shoes, as long as you're not, you know, the best athlete in the world putting a ton of pressure on them. So I can only imagine whose job it was to make sure that his shoes don't break again. How much glue and staples did they put into that thing just to make sure? But I'm sure there's some nerves going on there. But yeah, you're absolutely right. High-quality shoes. And people love them, so that's why I think Nike's
a little
doing so
Kevlar
well.
stitching for Zion's new shoes.
Well, they lost their way in 2016 and 17 because the stock wasn't performing well, because Adidas was starting to eat their lunch. Under Armour was coming into the space, but I saw that Zion Williamson was wearing a Adidas hat a couple weeks after that shoe blowout, so we'll have to wait and see on that. But that might come into negotiations later on.
But here's the thing.
He's negotiating. He wants to get paid. He's made it very clear that he's going to be sponsored by whoever pays him the most.
But here's the thing about that.
Right,
but here's the thing about that. Who has more money to spend on that? Any gym shoe company or Nike?
Yeah, there we go. Maybe if they all combined and went against Nike, they could maybe do that. But for more on social media, let's bring in TD Ameritrade Network's own Jenny Horn. Good morning, Jenny.
Good morning, guys.
Yeah, so a little dad joke there with the New Balance. But
Yeah.
The new
hey, they're
Directed, very subtly directed at me. Don't think I didn't notice.
Oh, I know, but I mean, I did see some noise about Zion Williamson today on social media, but it seems like for the most part that's been really blown over. I mean, Under Armour has not done a great job putting out shoes. We've talked about that so many times on the show. And then they have all these great price targets raised this morning. So Nike really positive momentum.
They're the Teflon in this industry because look what happened with the Colin Kaepernick. That was supposed to really hurt them, right?
Right.
Didn't.
They came back.
Yeah.
I think what Landon said about the Women's Day thing, I think that is spot on. I think that was released early because of the negative. I think they did, which is genius, by the way, to do that.
Yeah, I think they're turning it around.
Nike does a good job coming out of all these events kind of unscathed.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting. But our first tweet is from Jeff Mackey, who says, Nike reporting later this week. Everyone has forgotten that time Nike made new shoes for Duke basketball player. The details are already fuzzy, but shares have been mulling whether or not they should make new highs for a month. A base of the beginnings or a midlife crisis. So, I mean, I think the stock looks pretty much unscathed from this whole Zion Williamson situation.
We joked about it that day on the air. If you sell your Nike stock because of what happened to Zion Williamson, that's a bad trade that you're about to make.
Especially after
we said it that day.
The history with the Colin Kaepernick, which was supposed to be a detriment to this stock.
Yes.
And it was for like 2 days. So don't fight it, is what I like to say on stocks like this.
Right. But full disclosure, though, it has had some trouble up at these levels, breaking through.
You would
these
expect
levels.
that, though, going back to all-time highs, and the RSI getting a little overbought on a technical level. But the momentum's there. And for these analysts to come out a couple days before earnings, hiking their price targets, obviously they've done their research, they've done their analytics on this, so maybe they're seeing better comps coming, perhaps.
Right, exactly. So our next tweet says, Nike stock price $86.94, a new pair of Air Jordans $150, asset versus liability. So I love this because it's so true.
There's another dad joke built in here, just so you know, Jenny.
Gosh, I can't even go there.
I owned the first pair of Air Jordans. I owned the originals.
Okay, that's pretty hip of you, though.
That was in 1986 or something like that.
Yeah, they were expensive back then, too.
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
But Landon, do you look at that? People equate the stock price. It's almost at all-time highs, but their margins have increased over the last several quarters, and they have pricing power now where they don't have to discount any of their shoes. Is that part of what your data is showing you from LikeFolio, that it is like Teflon for this company?
It is. And so, I mean, all of that kind of goes into both consumer happiness and purchase intent. And we saw the consumer happiness chart earlier. It's doing well, had the little blip from Zion Williamson, but it's back. It's doing fine, trending up again. And purchase intent is very strong. I don't think it is as strong as the stock suggests it should be. So I would say that possibly it's a little bit overpriced right now. So we may disagree with those analysts and agree more with that RSI indicator that it might be a little bit overbought. But it's not doom and gloom in the data by any means. We think the company's doing well, but maybe the stock's just a little bit overpriced based on what we're seeing. I think if they can avoid any disaster as far as shoe failures in the NCAA tournament or any recurring injuries for Williamson on his knee, that would be great, and we'll see. Maybe Duke can get to the final game and rematch with UNC. It could be a great tournament. We'll see.
All right, Landon, we cannot let you go off the air without asking, how much drama is in the Louisville area right now with Rick Pitino's son playing Louisville? Minnesota, for our viewers, Minnesota plays Louisville. The ex-coach of Louisville, Rick Pitino, his son coaches Minnesota. How much drama is going around Louisville right now?
I mean, I think that the fans are going to stick with the team before they stick with the coach.
Sure.
So if anything, they'll probably see him as a traitor, right? I mean, of course, that's not the case, but that's how these sort of illogical fans may see it. There's a lot of drama, and I think that people are so illogical sometimes. They're looking ahead and saying, can we beat Duke, because they're in the same bracket.
Right.
So they got to stay short-sighted and look at the challenge ahead. So that's going to be a really fun game to see how the coaching challenges go between those two teams. It's going to be interesting. I can't wait for this weekend.
So much for random matchups, right, in the first round.
Right.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see on that, and boiler up is all I've got to say.
Whoa!
Swan, on your predictions. Nobody wants to see Duke and North Carolina near the finals there, by the way. So plan accordingly when you fill out your brackets. Hey, Landon, thanks for all the great data on Nike from LikeFolio. Appreciate it.
Awesome. You guys have a good day. Thank you.
All right. Jenny Horn, you got virtual trade coming up with Scott Connor. What are you guys talking about today?
Today we'll talk about short call vertical spreads. We'll